Michigan will soon have a new budget that will fund operations and services through September of 2026. It took until early this morning to get the deal done. Political reporter Rick Albin is here to tell us more about the process. And Rick, you said yesterday that you thought it might be happening like this, but you also cautioned that it isn't done until it's done, right? And we watched that play out until about 3 or 4 this morning. What was the holdup?
Well, it was really the roads deal, which is kind of has been since the beginning when we started talking about this. But it wasn't the roads deal specifically as it was the funding mechanism. That's a 24% tax, a partial funding mechanism on cannabis that had producers and workers in the Capitol. They were protesting there for about 2 days. There were some Democrats that just were not going to go along with that, which was the centerpiece of a road plan for local throughways that the governor campaigned on for 8 years. In the end, 3 Republicans, all term limited, voted in favor to get it across the line, but there were literally hours of conversations and persuasion and, might I say, arm twisting to get it done. So much so when I spoke with the governor earlier today, she said this was one of the hardest budgets she's ever had to negotiate. Think about that for a minute, because this is her 21st budget.
Wow. Oh, okay, Rick. Yeah, wow. I know there's so much in this budget, right, to unpack. Could be taking several days to look at this. I know you're taking a look at it, but what does this process, does it mean for the legislature and the governor now over the next, 15 or so months left that they have still?
Yeah, I think there are going to be some hard feelings. I mean, but there were hard feelings before they started. But I think that some of them may have learned in this budget process that maybe there's a place you can find the middle ground. The governor, this was one more difficult process. I agree with her. I've been watching this for about 3 decades. And there were some real significant differences there that make me think that there may be a framework of cooperation for the leadership, because when they couldn't get a deal, they stayed at it. They weren't all talking all the time, but they were still talking in some way. And when they finally did get a deal and they recognized that it couldn't be implemented by the midnight Tuesday deadline, they all agreed for a stopgap measure rather than a shutdown. So I think that is something that is positive, unlike what's going on in Washington.
Right.
It isn't going to be any easier to deal with divided government over the next few months, but the budget won't be all they're fighting about. In other words, they won't have this one central issue. So I think it may be a little better, but I can tell you this, lawmakers in the House at least are going to take a week off and let everybody cool down for a little bit.
Yeah, that might be best. Yeah, but they didn't reach that 8th deadline, so that is good.
Right.
All right, Rick, what are the next steps for this budget, and how soon will it go into place?
Well, the actual budget bills will be reviewed by the governor's fiscal staff, and unless there is something that is an error or something that wasn't previously negotiation, I would expect her to sign them probably by Tuesday. She's going to be out of the country for a while. I don't know how that all works out, but Tuesday would be before the expiration of the short-term thing. They would go into effect immediately, because they would immediately take over, except for the marijuana tax. And I believe that may take a while longer. They may have to have some rules and procedures laid out. So I'm not sure that that will happen as quickly, but they've already established some rules surrounding that. Any of it, business impacted by that will be notified by the Treasury, I'm sure, but for the other agencies and departments are right now looking at the documents to see what they're going to have to deal with. Same for schools. They already know their per pupil funding is going to be a record at $10,050. Other funding may have shifted within that within those budgets. So a lot of folks go from uncertainty to the new reality of the budget for the next year. And I think on balance, there are a lot of folks that are looking at this and say we can live with it. There are some people, and namely the cannabis producers and businesses, that are very unhappy about this. And I suspect we haven't heard the end of this 24% tax, or maybe even challenges to it.
All right. Well, Rick, you spent the week in Lansing. Thank you for your coverage. We appreciate you.
Thank you.